No, Billups loves being a virgin. I mean an engineer. Oh man, I don't feel so good. Guess what, my dudes? Lower Decks Season 2, I think, just had its best episode. This episode was called Where Pleasant Fountains Lie. Not so sure what that means, other than perhaps finding water, which will come into play later in the episode, but I'm getting ahead of myself. In this episode, we start with Ransom recovering a sentient evil computer contained in a small box from a world that has recently excised its computer overlord, similar to Landru or numerous other episodes of Star Trek. You know the story. Some civilization reveres what is revealed to be a computer as its god, and it is up to the crew of Starfleet and or the Enterprise to remove this computer and give people back their free will, as it were. We've seen it early in TNG. We've seen it with Landru, and I think I've seen it in a Star Trek book somewhere. Can't remember. Anyway, there's numerous cases. The internet is an excellent research tool. Perhaps type in Star Trek computer. Right now, I'm recording this video on a Star Trek computer. Hopefully nothing on the Dingwall starts to become sentient and go crazy and try to kill me with murder drones. So we're just going to hope and pray that doesn't happen. Meanwhile, we're going to finish this review. They're taking this robot / computer away from this planet, saving the people there. Everything's fine and dandy, but they need to transport this robot to the Daystrom Institute. Of course, the renowned institute for the study of all things science, computers, AI, you name it. Very famous in the Federation. I've been there. They're taking it to the Okinawa Daystrom Institute location, I believe. And in a sense, Mariner has to take this machine without interacting with it. Don't talk to it. You're not allowed to the Daystrom Institute on a shuttle. And Boimler originally is supposed to be on a cooler duty. He's going to be taking a phaser rifle, and he's going to be killing monsters. You know, wet works, as they say. But he gets transferred onto Mariner's mission, which means the writers just wanted to put them together again. I don't get it. I know that they're, shipping certain characters romantically. Mariner and Boimler. Rutherford and Tandy. But wouldn't it have been cool maybe to have Boimler and Tandy go bring the computer to Daystrom Institute? Just saying. The computer's name is Agamus. It is voiced by Jeffrey Combs, who you can immediately tell it's him. He has great inflections on his voice. He's sultry. He's inviting. He's perfect for an evil robot. He plays great villains. But shamefully, we were robbed of Star Trek Enterprise Season 5, where we could have had Jeffrey Combs as Shran, as a regular in Season 5, which is what they were talking about doing. Having him maybe be on the Enterprise all the time. That would have been cool. And yes, I accidentally called him Crooms for a second. That's not his last name. His last name's not Crooms. It's Combs. You might remember him as Wayun from Deep Space Nine, or Shran from Star Trek Enterprise, as well as Brunt, FCA. My favorite character in all of Star Trek, Brunt from FCA in Deep Space Nine. Check it out. This robot is being shuttled, literally, by Boimler and Mariner to the Daystrom Institute, when all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a Galileo 7 event happens. Oh my god, what? Okuda once said, a famous person behind the scenes at Star Trek, I believe one time he was asked, somebody asked him, what's the point of a shuttle? I believe he might have been talking to Doug Drexler. I can't remember. I read this somewhere. Don't quote me. Michael Okuda said, the point of a shuttle is to get lost. Right? Only a fool thinks a shuttle can take you to a planet. Smart people know that a shuttle can get you lost and create a cool episode. So this shuttle gets lost, and it gets marooned on this desert world that, because of a bizarre gravity anomaly, what have you, has caused many other ships to crash on this world. So Mariner, Boimler, and Agamus, the computer, have to survive on this world until they can get found. Or better yet, fix something to help them get off the planet. So they go on a little bit of a walkabout, and it's blistering heat, and there's many fun gags. The replicator of the shuttle is, of course, broken, and Mariner asks for water, and all she gets is a piece of black licorice. And she makes a terrible dig at black licorice, saying that it's disgusting and tastes like poison. I don't agree. I like black licorice. I eat it all the time. I have one of my meal cards for the mess hall actually has black licorice on it for an after dinner candy / dessert item. I'm one of the few people who actually takes it out of the mess hall. You know, the resequencers can make on special request certain types of candy, and I requested black licorice, and I have it on my card, so it's great. But I know I get weird looks because I'm one of the few people on the ship who gets black licorice. Maybe forget I ever said that. So they're wandering around, and the computer, Agamus, is constantly trying to get Mariner and Boimler to fight each other. He's doing what he always does, and what the other sentient computers always seem to do in Star Trek, is try to get people to fight each other and cause chaos and take over the Federation / the universe. And so this robot wants to be plugged into the shuttle. He wants to be plugged into these other ships. He wants to be plugged into a pad. And they keep denying it. It's interesting to see characters be genre savvy in this way. They're not giving the computer an inch. They're not helping him with anything. At every turn, they refuse to give the computer what it wants, which I thought was refreshing. Eventually, the computer convinces Boimler and Mariner to fight, and they do, and in a shocking turn of events, Boimler shoots Mariner. He stuns her, and I was flabbergasted by this, appalled even. But then a few moments go by, and it turns out it was part of a charade to trick Agamus into thinking that Boimler was on his side, because Boimler plugs him into an alien ship that they find that has crash landed, and Agamus is waxing poetic about how he's going to take over the world after Boimler plugged him in, only to have Boimler reveal that he plugged him into the dimmer switch, and all he can control is the light. And he is not hooked up to the navigational system of the machine / ship, and the Boimes shooting Mariner was a ruse. And I believe at one point Boimler said, "You've been Boimed," which is an interesting catchphrase. Perhaps the title of this episode, perhaps not. There's a few good one-liners in this episode that are title candidates. So they get found, and everything's okay. And the robot ends up at the Daystrom Institute. I believe either eventually they repaired the ship that they found enough so that they could survive, or they repaired it enough to fly off the planet. Regardless, they ended up in the care of another Starfleet shuttle. So, all's well that ends well for Mariner and Boimler. Interesting little bit of character development, because Boimler took the lead in this episode a lot. Boimler was the action hero in this episode, showing off his new skills he got by being on the Titan, much to the dismay of Mariner, who always has to be above him for seemingly no reason. It was nice seeing the Boimes take charge. So, that plot, the A-plot, is pretty much all perfect. Way to go. I do like this episode. Stay tuned for the review score. I think you're going to be surprised with this one. B-plot is, again, Tendi and Rutherford. It just seems like this show is two couples on different adventures. Have we noticed that yet? That's what Lower Deck seems to be. Billups, the chief engineer on the Cerritos, we learn is a Hysperion, I believe it was called. He's actually the prince of his homeworld. And his homeworld is like a medieval fantasy land. And they have medieval-style spaceships. And it's all very funny and is a real smorgasbord for the eyes. As is the rest of this episode. And his mother has come to visit. His mother's ship, the Movina, I forget what it's called, something like that. An interesting looking ship, fun design. It's got a hairy mudness to it, I must say. It's having engine problems, so they need a good engineer, like the Queen's own son, to work on it. Wouldn't you know it, right? Mom's on the ship. Have we seen this before? It smacks of Loaxana Troy, if one remembers the New Guys, TNG. Similar relationship, overbearing, annoying, nobody wants to be around her. You definitely get that impression, but she is the queen, so she is respected. But, again, beautiful visuals. The ship comes alongside the Cerritos. A docking tube extends from the side of the ship onto the Cerritos, and they go across. Rutherford and Billups are tasked with fixing this ship. And we also learn that Billups, in his culture, once he loses his virginity, he has to become king. And he's been shirking his responsibilities by being in Starfleet. And this leads to many a funny scenario. A lot of good one-liners, usually on behalf of Rutherford. No, Billups loves being a virgin. I mean an engineer. So, it appears that they fixed the ship. Billups and Rutherford have fixed whatever kind of medieval-style problems are going on with the ship. Everything that Starfleet has a term for, this ship has a medieval fantasy term for it, which is quite humorous, I must say. They fixed this ship, and everything appears okay, but then Tendi, through the window, is looking at this ship, and there's an explosion. And Dr. Tana tells her that there's been an accident on the ship, on the Hysperion vessel, and it looks like Rutherford has died. And Tendi's crying, and she goes over the ship in a fury, and finds Rutherford in a secret room having dinner. So what happened? In this episode, it seems like one thing really violent and scary happens, and then a few minutes go by, and then they pull the rug out from under you and reveal it was a misdirection, which is a theme of this episode. Okay, the theme of this episode is number 1, misdirection. We reveal that the Queen faked her death and the accident in order to have Billups step up to the throne and become king, because they needed a leader. You know, commendable. However, this is not what Billups really wants. Billups wants to be in Starfleet, but he puts that to the side and he says, I'm going to become king, and then he has to not be a virgin anymore, so he has to engage in royal copulation. And Rutherford, back on the Cerritos, is like, holy crap, we need to stop him. His mother is still alive. Billups doesn't have to do this. We're going to lose our engineer. And in a flurry, he runs over there, and he runs into the room to try to stop Billups engaging in intercourse for the first time. And he says, did his kingdom come? It was the funniest thing in the show so far in both seasons. That just think about it. Anyway, but it didn't happen. It didn't happen for Billups. And Rutherford got there in time to reveal that his mother is not dead, and it was all just a sham. And the ship is on its way. The ship is fine. It was all a big scam. And, what did we learn? You don't have to do what your parents or your society wanted you to do. You have to find your own path. You have to be responsible to yourself. Okay? This episode was about misdirection and free will. You see, Agamus was the computerized godhead of this world in the intro scene that they saved them from, gave them back their free will. And Billups got his free will back by taking command of his own virginity and taking his rightful place as engineer on the Cerritos. So this is an episode about free will, about being your true self, about Boimler stepping up to the plate. Something to marinate, something to saute in the brain, something to ferment. Extremely funny moments, great character moments. This episode had the best of everything. Visually, like I said before, it was a smorgasbord. You got beautiful shots of the Cerritos at an angle when you can see the Aztec pattern on it shining. Beautiful. You get to see the new ship, the new Hysperion ship, on behalf of Billups' mother. Another very interesting ship design. You get to see the planet that Boimler and Mariner crash landed on. Very cool desert world with all kinds of ancient spaceships crashing into the ground. I love seeing this type of thing. It calls to mind the Promelian cruiser from TNG, if you remember that. There's nothing I like more than seeing ancient fossilized starships. It sparks wonder and it sparks curiosity in a very interesting way. We also seen a shot of the Daystrom Institute on Earth. Very cool. We seen the interior of the Hysperion ship, which was like a medieval castle on the inside of a starship. How cool is that? Why can't we get this creative in Discovery or on Picard? This is where all the creativity went. All the visual creativity went into Lower Decks. I have a feeling that perhaps this show is taking more risks with its visuals because it's probably less supervised than the other series. Like, they don't care about it as much. Like Kurtzman and co. probably don't really have as much of a grasp on this as the other shows. I mean, they make fun of Kurtzman in this show. There's a cameo appearance of Kurtzman in a few episodes ago, where they show a character in a wheelchair, like the Captain Pike style wheelchair, remember, from the Menagerie, and he looks exactly like Alex Kurtzman. Look it up. I can actually put a screenshot up too. I think in season 1, there's Mariner saying something like, "This guy is so boring, I hate him," and when she's saying this, she's looking down at the credits for the episode, and right where she's looking, it says Alex Kurtzman. And then at the end of this episode, they're at the Daystrom Institute, and there's multiple sentient evil robots, and one of them has like the ABC I logo, like if you know that old Earth television station / network. So there's multiple digs at networks and creator / creators of the show, and I have to wonder, are they getting away with this stuff because no one's paying attention? Bit of a conspiracy theory, I know, but this episode was a wonderful tour de force. This was Lower Decks firing on all cylinders. If we could cut some of the cursing, and if we could cut some of the blatantly irregular activities on behalf of Starfleet officers that don't seem to comport with regulations and procedures. If we could overlook that, this episode would be very, very good, but I can't overlook those things. So I'm going to have to go with a 7.5 for this episode. This is my favorite episode of the season so far, and I don't care who knows it. I've disagreed with past reviews that other people have made so far with Lower Decks Season 2. Some episodes that people seem to love that I hated, and then other episodes people seem to hate that I loved. But I really feel in my heart that this one is a 7.5. This is the one, along with K-Shawn, His Eyes Open, I think it was called. With the one with the museum. These are the two episodes of this season that are real standouts, and then I may actually go back and watch. Again, this episode wasn't absolutely chock-a-block full of ugly slapstick gag reels like certain episodes were, and it didn't have a breakneck mile-a-minute pace, but it also wasn't too slow either. It was just right, and it just hit basically every button in the right way, except for some of the bad language. How you do adult jokes, they worked perfectly in this episode. They didn't have to use bad language to get adult jokes across. Clearly this is an adult show. I know someone tried to say it was for teenagers before, and I don't really think it is. It feels... Was this not ostensibly marketed as an adult show? Am I wrong? But, anyway, that's beside the point. So, this was Where Pleasant Fountains Lie, perhaps referring to the fact that Mariner and Boimed are looking for an oasis of water in the desert planet that they're stuck on, except they find random alien juice in strange fruit that tastes like licorice. Is that a pleasant fountain? This name kind of sucked, but the episode didn't. Again, 7.5. I'm totes excited for next week, you can say. And I'm wondering what's going to happen in the finale. Hope we don't get another Riker save. We don't need any more of that. We've already had 2 Riker saves at the end of Picard Season 1 and Lower Decks Season 1. I don't need to see that, but it would be cool if we could have maybe, not necessarily a save, but we could have, maybe a rogue Borg cube shows up, and they have to, fight off this cube, and then they give it a bunch of Pakleds, and the Borg cube assimilates the Pakleds, and then the Borg become stupid and kill themselves. If that's the last episode, if I'm right, I'm gonna shit my pants. Because that sounds like something that would happen in Lower Decks. Anyway, this is Mark, and I'm about to friggin' disappear. See you guys later.